Greetings, guys. Welcome to the channel again. Listen, this video is primarily directed toward on-duty law enforcement officers, but I welcome civilians to listen to it as well because I think it's important that we all kind of learn this topic. Just basically, it's going to be a short video, but the background is I posted a really quick video on TikTok yesterday and then Instagram, and it was based on an incident that I had, nothing big, but it was police related. And it got such a fast and big response that I thought, you know what, maybe I should delve into a subject that's related to it a little bit deeper. And it has to do with the attitudes of law enforcement as they relate to citizens. And you know, that video yesterday had to do with kind of like just the same thing, but also retired cops, you know, interacting with on-duty cops and whatnot. But it got me thinking last night about my own police career. You know, I was a Los Angeles police officer in the 80s and 90s. And, you know, I notice a lot. I'm an observer. I see, I always watch things around me and how people react. And I mean, and I was very honest with myself and the young cops that I was training and even some of the old salts that I worked with. You know, police work is an interesting career choice, and the public is naturally infatuated with it because movies and, you know, there's this whole authority thing, and it's just something that, you know, whether you love cops or hate them, you know, it's an interesting, you know, when 3 or 4 police cars stop somewhere, you're just naturally wondering what the hell's going on. And I can tell you, you know, that even when I was an active duty police officer, you know, I'd be driving home from work and I'd look in the mirror and there's a highway patrol car behind me, and my instincts automatically are, why is he fucking with me? What did I do? You know, the guy's just going to pass me and go on to his call or go to lunch or something. So, you know, cops just have that thing, you know, where because it's authority, they represent, you know, they have the ability to really fuck your day up. So, you know, whether it's with a ticket or whatever it could be, you know, it's generally the police aren't there for something good. That's not to say that that's not always the case, but generally the police are there because shit went wrong. So with that in mind, and again, now I'm talking to young cops, because, you know, generations come and they're different than the ones before them. And I learned things from the guys that were on before me, and I want to pass on a little something to you guys in terms of how you deal with citizens. And I'm not saying that I was always 100% awesome with citizens. I'm sure there were times when I said the wrong thing and had the wrong attitude, and I regret it, and I regretted it after I did it. But, you know, cops, as I always say, cops are not made in a factory. They're humans, and whenever you have humans, you're going to have all kinds of emotions, and people have divorces going on and bills they can't pay and kids that are having issues in school, just like everybody. And so you end up having bad days at work. The problem is when you have a bad day at work and you're a cop, it can affect everybody around you in a serious way. So, you know, it's up to us to do the best we can to control that and set that shit aside while we're at work. But, you know, I remember there used to be kind of this old tongue-in-cheek thing where no matter what happened with a police incident, you know, you'd always see the citizens would come and look because there's 60 police cars there and there's damage and debris and there's fires going on and there's bodies laying everywhere and plane parts. And some cop would be like, you know, move along. There's nothing to see here. Quit gawking, move along. And I remember when I was a young cop, I was thinking to myself, what the fuck? There's a lot to see here. I mean, there's a freaking 747 engine laying in the middle of the street, and there's dead bodies all over that guy's yard. It's not something that we see every day. So, you know, the point we should always be empathetic and understand that it's human nature to look and to be curious, and especially when it's in front of you or it's in front of your house or your apartment. You know, so I tried to always, and I didn't always succeed, so I'm not saying I'm holier than thou, but I always tried my very best to treat the citizens the way I would want to be treated in that situation. Meaning, if I looked out my window and there was police putting up yellow tape, and, you know, I would automatically realize, my God, somebody got killed, you know, and you want to know things. Now, certainly the cops can't just give you all the details. They're going to compromise an ongoing investigation. And certainly the cops can't stop what they're doing in order to give you an education. because now they're not being effective at what they're supposed to be doing, and that can be dangerous in law enforcement. But I made it a habit of, when people would ask me, "Excuse me, officer, what happened?" Which is it's a logical question. And if somebody coming up to you and says, "Hey, what happened?" If that makes your blood boil, I'm just asking you to rethink just the nature of humanity and who we are. And people are not bad people or rude because they want to know what's happening. They don't understand protocol. They don't think, just like I don't understand what goes on in the cockpit of an airplane. I know they fly the plane, but I don't understand the intricacies of it. My dog wants to play. No, Mason, stop. He's going to start crying. But, you have to give them a little slack, because you may have to tell them, and this is what I would do. I would say, "Sir, I can't talk right now, but I'll get with you as soon as I can." And then I would follow through with that. So if I had 5 people or 100 people or 10 people standing there and they're wanting to know what happened, I would let them know that I will get with you as soon as I can. And that lets them, oh, okay, cool. That's a polite way to tell them, that you're not telling them to, F off, but you're in the middle of something. And then I would make it a point, when everything was code 4, I would walk up to them and say, "Hey guys, what's going on is we got a call, that there was a guy peeping in windows 2 blocks away. And when the unit got there, they saw a guy looking in a window, and he took off running, and there was a foot pursuit, and then there was an altercation, and so the guy got hurt, and that's what the ambulance was here for. He's in custody, and that's basically it. So now they can go home and they can go, oh, I understand what's going on. They see a guy getting wheeled into an ambulance, and you don't want them to draw their own conclusions. Oh, the cops shot some innocent guy. Oh, the cops beat up a guy because he's the wrong color. Let them know what's going on. My point of this video is not to lecture. It's to plant a seed in you, in the young cops, to remind you of what you already know. And that is, we're all in this together. All the citizens and us, we work for the citizens, and we also work for each other to keep each other safe. But we have an obligation to the people that pay our salaries to keep them as informed as we can, without compromising our own safety or our own mission. It doesn't take much. And I would just encourage all of you, when somebody comes up and they want to talk, because people do want to talk to cops. People come up to you and they say, "Hey, thank you for your service. Thank you for what you do." Stop and talk with them. Talk with them just a little bit. Something, you're not going to remember everybody you talk to, but everybody you talk to is going to remember you. I remember every police contact I ever had in my entire, I'm 62. And, cops doing little mundane things, stopping and making a comment to me when I was a little kid. I can remember the whole thing, because it's an unusual occurrence in most people's lives. So every time you stop and you give a smile, or somebody thanks you and you say, "Hey, I really appreciate that," you are literally lighting a candle in a world of darkness where the politics or whatever have caused people to really turn against law enforcement. There's a lot of people that have a misunderstanding of law enforcement. And yeah, they think everybody's racist, and they think this and they think that. But you can do so much good with so little effort by literally just looking people in the eye, giving them a smile, and more importantly, getting out of that car. That was the thing. I wish they'd bring back foot beats. I used to walk foot beat in Hollywood. You get out and you walk. But even when I wasn't on a foot beat, when I worked in the projects in Watts, we would literally leave our car and just walk around, man. And that's how I knew everybody in the entire projects. I knew them all by name. I knew their grandparents. I knew their mom. I knew who was who, and who was, who had lost a child, because in those days it was a violent times. Everybody lost somebody over there. I get acid reflux when I think about it, because it was a sad part of my life, just the amount of bloodshed that was going on in the 80s. But it is so empowering for you. And what you're doing is, you're an ambassador. Every time you put that uniform on, you don't represent Officer Smith or Officer whoever. You represent law enforcement all over the country now, because of social media. It used to be, I would tell people, you represent the city of Los Angeles. But no, everybody's watching, everybody's filming. And there's social media, and everybody knows, and they say, "Hey, man, I saw this cop and he hit this guy, man. I wonder why he did that. He's probably racist." as opposed to somebody sending out a message, man, I saw this cop hitting this guy, and then the cop walked over and explained to us that when he tried to arrest the guy that he recognized as being wanted for robbery, the guy elbowed him in the chest, took a swing at him, and tried to run away. And so the cop tackled him, and the guy resisted, so he hit him 5 or 6 times, handcuffed him. You're literally letting somebody walk away, going, oh well, no wonder there was violence. Because let's not kid ourselves. I used to tell people all the time, all the things in a cop's belt, all of the equipment, none of it's there to make anybody feel good. It's, police work is a motherfucker when it comes down to it, because you're not a firefighter, you're not rescuing people for the most part. It does happen, but your primary job is to be that force between good and evil. And there are going to just be cop haters, just like there's people that hate white people and people that hate black people. There's ignorant people, and some people are just going to hate everybody. So those are out of the equation. You don't let them dictate how you feel. You literally look in the mirror before you walk out of that locker room and say, I'm an ambassador, because the way I treat somebody is going to very likely affect many, many other cops. I used to tell my young cops when I was a training officer, when you shit on people and you're rude to them or you treat them like crap, you never know how that butterfly effect may down the road end up, having a little part to play in that guy hurting or killing a cop down the road, because he's so sick and tired of law enforcement always fucking with him. So be the nice guy. That doesn't mean you let your guard down. I could be so sweet and so nice, and I am right now when I'm talking to people on the street. But I assure you that every time I'm talking to somebody, I've already figured out 15 different ways to stop them if they threaten me. And that's the way you should be. You can smile and be perfectly polite and be ready to go into full condition red in a nanosecond. And it doesn't hurt, it helps. I often tell the story, and my old partner's probably going to watch this. What's up, Tim? About how we used to, because the basketball courts and the projects never had any nets on them. And we used to watch these guys playing basketball. And one day I think my partner said, man, that would suck playing basketball. I can't make a basket without a net. We went over to some sporting good place, bought some nets, pulled up, and they're all thinking, oh shit, here comes the pigs. They see the black and white. We come over and we drive onto the court, and they're all grumpy. But I get out, stand up on the hood of the car, and hung up these nets. That little gesture, well, it went a long way, because those young kids who are living in a shitty environment and surrounded by violence and naturally hate cops, saw the cops actually give a shit about them. And it wasn't fake and it wasn't phony. We didn't call a news station to come and film us doing it, It was just because we actually gave a shit. And contrary to some of the cop haters that I'm sure are going to be commenting, 90%, if not 99% of the cops are great people, just like 99% of dentists and everyone else. There's always going to be that 1% of fuck ups. And that is a reflection on society, not on a job, not on a career choice. Because the police department gets its officers from the society. And if the society's fucked up, you have a smaller pool of good people to choose from. So do your part, teach your partners. When you got some time on the job, teach the young bucks, man, by example. Instead of telling people, hey, go back in your houses, there's nothing to see here. And then you turn around and address the burning vehicle and the bodies in the street. There's a lot to see there. And people are perfectly normal to want to know what the hell's going on in their neighborhood. So be the different one. Slide over there and go, hey guys, I saw you noted. You're probably wondering what happened over here. Now, I can't tell you everything because of some privacy concerns, but basically what happened was there was a pursuit, and at the end of the pursuit, the guy crashed into 3 or 4 cars, and you can see what happened here. His car flipped over and blew up, and now he's a burning ember in the middle of the street. But this is what the deal was. This is what he was wanted for. You can say this stuff to them, and what you do is you send a bunch of people away that might have hated you had you not taken just a little bit of time to show them some dignity and just some humanity. And that is not being some kind of weakling. That is strength, man. Being nice to people who you serve and who you're there to serve and protect, being nice and compassionate, man, that is strength. So go out there, and it's a dark world. Light candles of happiness, light candles of peace. And you can do it with your words and with your actions. And I hope that didn't come off as a lecture. I'm pro law enforcement, and I think each and every single one of you that is serving, or ever did serve, those that are old and survived long enough to be retired, understand that that's not a job that just goes away when you retire. That's something that we are. Law enforcement is something that is much deeper than going to work every day. It affected every day of my life as a cop, and those experiences affect every day of my life as an old guy. So anyways, good luck to everybody. Wear your vest. Stay safe. Bye.